coastline and all the way to the coast of Antarctic. Thirdly, our country has an obligation to conduct professional hydrographic services to these ships by accurately charting the depth of our waters so that these vessels know where to sail safely. These roles can only be conducted by the South African Navy. Furthermore, there are also others, more local roles that the South African Navy must conduct. These include constabulary roles such as inspecting fishing vessels to determine whether they have the required permits, inspecting vessels who may be suspected of smuggling illegal goods and people, and other roles. Other roles such as defense diplomacy, exercises with other navies, and specific roles for the Navy itself are also conducted. I will explain this further now. These multi-mission inshore patrol vessels will largely focus on the constabulary roles, defense diplomacy, and roles for the Navy itself. The SA Navy of a few years ago had a number of different types of vessels. These were the submarines, the offshore patrol vessels, frigates, combat support ships, combat support vessel, hydrographic survey vessel, anti-mine warfare vessel, also known as mine hunters, deep diving support, and torpedo recovery vessels. The submarines and frigates have been replaced during the arms acquisition packages about 15 years ago, whilst the new hydrographic survey vessel is currently being built right here at Sandog Astral Shipyards here in Durban. The South African Navy will soon start a project to replace the combat support vessel, South African ship Drakensberg, which is nearly 40 years old. That leaves us with the offshore patrol vessels, mine hunters, deep diving support, and torpedo recovery vessels that must be replaced. This is exactly what these multi-mission inshore patrol vessels will do. They will replace all these vessels, all these types of vessels into one platform. The only challenge to this is the fact that we cannot expect the multi-mission inshore patrol vessels to effectively conduct the role of an offshore patrol vessel. Why, do you ask? The answer is simply, the South African coastline is notorious for some of the roughest seas in the world. Our country's exclusive economic zone extends for 200 nautical miles or 300 kilometers from our coastline. Ladies and gentlemen, most of you have never been 370 kilometers from land on our seas. Believe me, the seas, they are very rough. And although these MMIPVs may look very impressive, they are simply not large enough to effectively patrol our waters in these conditions. Thus, simply must have larger multi-mission offshore patrol vessels to work in these conditions. However, the multi-mission inshore patrol vessels will still have boats and maritime reaction squadron members stationed on board who can still go and conduct stop and search operations onto vessels sailing close to our coastline. Thus, these multi-mission inshore patrol vessels will replace the mine hunters, deep diving support, and torpedo recovery vessels. The SA Navy is currently in the process of containerize the anti-mine warfare capability through Project Motsu, so that it can be placed on these vessels. This capability is absolutely vital because even a threat of a sea mine can close a port like Durban for weeks on end. This will have devastating consequences for our economy. It requires specialized equipment and highly trained personnel, and is a vital capability for any Navy to have. Another function that these vessels will fulfill is that of deep diving support, where we must support our Navy divers through specialized equipment to conduct diving operations. The other function is that of a torpedo recovery vessel. This simply means that when our submarines are conducting firing exercises of torpedoes, the exercise torpedoes must be recovered by a specialized vessel. The deep diving support and torpedo recovery capabilities used to conduct by the South African ship fleet which was decommissioned in 2003. As you can imagine, the South African Navy is very excited to have these multi-mission inshore patrol vessels because they will greatly enhance our capabilities due to their versatility. As you can imagine, once all 3 ships are fully commissioned and operational, they will be very busy. I must, however, make the following position very clear. If you only have 3 vessels of the same class, the best you can do is to have one at a high level of capability, one at a lower level of capability, and one in the maintenance cycle. If you do not do this and try to operate these ships permanently, at some stage you will have none operationally available because they will be all in maintenance at the same time. I must state it categorically here, ladies and gentlemen. We are very glad to have these ships, but we will need money to operate them effectively. How much money, you ask? Well, my answer to that is, it depends. It depends on the sea condition, it depends on how fast they sail, and it depends on how many people they have on board. Sailing at an economical speed of 12 knots, these vessels use 7 tons of diesel. At today's diesel price, that is approximately 200,000 rand per day. You must couple this with a full complement of 60 people, which means allowances, salaries, and food for this amount of people. You have to compare this with a frigate of 180 people sailing at an economic speed of 18 knots that uses 25 tons of diesel at this speed. This costs about 730,000 rand per day in fuel alone. Now you can see that it costs about 3 times cheaper to send an MMIPV on a fishing patrol than to send a frigate. However, if you want to send a naval warship into a hostile situation like we currently have in the northern of Mozambique, then you send a frigate and not a multi-mission inshore patrol vessel. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I must emphasize this point. We are very grateful to government for procuring these ships. However, we cannot do our work effectively with 3 of these ships. Like I explained to you, we will only ever have 2 of these ships at some level of operational capability at the same time, provided we get sufficient money. Our land area is 1.2 million square kilometers. However, our exclusive economic zone is 1.5 million square kilometers, of which 466,000 square kilometers surround the Prince Edward Islands in the Southern Atlantic Ocean. If we take our maritime security seriously, and if we want to protect our maritime economy, we need at least another 12 ships, of which 6 must be the larger offshore patrol vessels. I am absolutely convinced of the fact that over a 30-year period, the investment in these ships and the overall benefit of our economy in preventing theft of our maritime resources, as well as criminality on our oceans, makes the procurement of an additional 12 vessels a very logical and rational choice. South African ship King Sekhukhune the First was commissioned last year. The vessel was very busy with an operational test and evaluation phase. During this phase, the vessel was tested to perform all functions listed above, such as deep diving support, torpedo recovery, boarding operations, etc. Some of the specific operational tests and evolutions, such as towing another vessel of the same class, could not be completed. Now, with a second vessel of the same class, these type of exercises can be required, that require 2 vessels of the same class can be completed. At this point, the second MMIPV has not been named as yet, but I would like to say thank you to the King of the mighty Zulu Nation, His Royal Majesty King Mrs. Zulu, for allowing the South African Navy to use the name King Shaka Zulu. We are so proud to recognize the role played by this mighty warrior in shaping our country, and we promise to ensure that the name King Shaka Zulu will do the Zulu nation and the whole of South Africa proud. I would also like to thank the representatives sitting here on the panel for their willingness to come here today and to engage with you, the members of the media. Today is a good day for not only the South African Navy, but also the South African National Defence Force and the country as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude. Please feel free to engage us. We are here to answer your questions. Thank you again for coming here today. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move into question and answer sessions. Just to reiterate, we'll do one round of 3 questions each, and we'll see how far we go in the interest of time. Members of the media, please introduce yourself and the media house you belong to, and then you can pose your questions. Thank you. Any? Okay, acknowledged, sir, and acknowledged. If you've got a Ghana voice, you can just go ahead, like us.
Okay, I think to the Admiral. Clinton Waters from Warships International Fleet Review. I've heard that we got an extension on maybe procuring a 4th inshore patrol vessel. Is that still on the cards, that there might be an extension to a 4th one? And talking about the replenishment ship, do you have any idea yet on the tonnage that you're looking at for a new replenishment ship? Seen that Drakensberg was about 12,000 tons. Would it be in the same sort of capacity, or bigger or smaller? Thank you very much.
Right. We'll have another media house.
Thank you very much. My voice is not as big as his. My name is Daniel Nyando from Newsroom Africa. Okay, I've got 2 questions. So the Vice Admiral. The first one is, you touched on the issue of cost of running this multi-mission inshore vessels on a daily basis mission. So how are we planning to get this money, as it seems like serious money? Secondly, without downplaying the safety of our maritime space, but we are just looking at the feasibility of it and in terms of cost. Secondly, the issue of the awarding of the tender to Diamond Shipyards. How much the whole tender, because you spoke that it was a multi-year, deal, obviously with price escalating. So how much did we end up spending in the building of this vessel? Thank you.
Last media house, just on this questions around. Okay, while you think about it, we'll move to the answers. I think if I gather, that will be 4 questions asked by 2 media houses. Yes, so I'll now, so the first question was about the 4th one and the replenishing or the replacement of Drakensberg as well. And then your questions were the budget, the cost, and then as well as how much did the awarding of the contract cost? Okay, I will now afford the panel an opportunity to respond. I think say we can start with the ones of the first media house.
Okay. Thanks to the members of the media for the 4 questions. With respect to the first one, the option for the 4th MMIPV, yes, we did receive that offer from Durban sometime last year, and it's been extended over time. As the South African Navy, we've accepted the offer. As you might have listened to my speech, I've said the 3 MIPVs that we are currently acquiring are not enough for us to be able to defend the coastline. We need the extra 12 so that we are able to cover the entire coastline. With an option that has been provided to us by Durban through AMSCO, we've accepted the offer. The only hindrance at this moment in time is the availability of the funds. But if, as Chief of the Navy, I had a healthy credit card, as I've said, I would have actually signed that we acquire not just the fourth one, the extra 8, so that we can have quite a substantial number of these frigates. The running cost for these frigates, what I've actually highlighted here is the minimum that is actually required. In terms of the current funding requirement that we have, just to be able to operate the current fleet that we have, we are running at a major risk as the SA Navy. We haven't been allocated any money to augment the operational requirements for us to be able to cover the operational, these extra 3 MIPVs. But we are engaging with our principals through the SECDEF as well as the National Treasury and the President, that the SA Navy must receive the required resources so that we can be able at any given time make sure that we are able to support all the platforms that we have. I will perhaps ask my Chief Director, Maritime Sector Strategy, to answer on the issue of the replacement of Drakensberg.
Thank you very much, Chief of the Navy, sir, Chief of Staff, and members of the media. Thank you for a very good question.
If the cameras want to see.
Oh yeah. Sorry, it's a little thank you very much, Chief of the Navy, for this opportunity, and thank you, members of the command council. It's a very good question. Project Makoto, that's what we call the combat support vessel that you're asking about. The current capability that we have is SS Drakensberg. It was built here from 1979. I think it was almost completed 1982 and it was commissioned 1986. It was built here in Durban from South African shipyards. So we must be proud of ourselves about that, similar to Durban shipyards that actually completed the 3. The plan is now to resuscitate now the requirement. We've already raised the requirement, I think it was 10 years ago. So the requirement was deferred due to shortage of funding. So it will be plus or minus 12,000 tons, similar to Drakensberg, but slightly more versatile than Drakensberg. It must be able to go to as far as the Arctic. It must be able to actually conduct all the diplomatic missions that we intending to actually pursue it now. As the Chief of the Navy's vision, that we have to make sure that our neighbors actually are well secured and our region is much more secured. So, in your question, yes, we are actually going to dust that file off. The Chief of the Navy has looked at it and is interested to make sure that this requirement is actually put back into life, hoping that the National Treasury will be able to assist us. Thank you very much.
I will then request the CEO of AMSCO, because he's the one that was dealing directly with the issues of acquisition and the expenditure of funds, maybe to assist in answering this question.
Thank you, Chief. As it was stated, the contract was awarded in 2018, and for the 3 IPVs that were to be built locally down in Cape Town. The costs or the provision for these 3 IPVs, includes the cost includes the caters for escalation costs and your rate of exchange as well, and the total amount that was made available or that was contracted was in total, including the escalation cost, was to a tune of 2.5 billion. But as you will imagine, I mean, these are the type of vessels, given the the various functions that they must perform. And of course, it's not a vessel that you will, every short space of time, you are expected to replace. So we are expecting that, to say, these ships or these vessels will run for years. If they are well maintained, they can last for decades. So I think we do get value for money from that point of view. And I suppose the brilliant thing that we were able to do was to also, with the help of Durban, to try and, or to rather to transfer some of the skills and the technologies into local companies, and those companies are also participating in other projects or contracts that are held by the Dayman in Holland. Thank you.
Maybe I just want to add something on your question regarding the running cost for these platforms. I think we've seen this with the acquisition of the frigates and submarines, where governments actually allocated 80% towards the acquisition cost and only 20% towards the running cost, which was supposed to have been other way around. 20% on acquisition as well as 80% for the true life support, which is actually, that deficit, it's what is actually causing the South African Navy not to be able to conduct its business of being able to fight and win and remain unchallenged in sea, because we're unable to maintain our platforms because of the deficit in the operational budget that has been allocated to us by government. Even as we are now receiving these 3 MMIPVs, there's not been any financial injection by government to the South African Navy, so that we'll be able to make sure that we can operate and support this platform for the 30 years that we are required to operate them. But our government is a listening government. We have confidence that they will now this time give us all the resources that we require, so that we can be able to support and operate our frigates and submarines and the MMIPVs, to be able to provide a stable and effective maritime defense for the country. Thank you.
All right. It's fine. We can have a follow-up round of questions. Yes.
Sorry to hold the platform. I think on a lighter note, but serious one, the significance of naming your vessels after these icons, just explain the thought behind it.
Okay, we'll take, we're still on the second question.
Hello, I'm from East Coast Radio. My question is to you, Ndabezitha, with Africa Zulu. What is your reaction as the royal family on this honor that has been given by the South African Navy? Thanks.
Let's take another question in this round. Okay, so that will be all for this round, and now we will just request the panel to respond.
Thank you. The Navy, over the years, has actually adopted a tradition of naming our ships after the tried and tested sons and daughters of our land, who have actually distinguished themselves in the nation building of South Africa. So King Shaka Zulu is one of the great warriors that has actually fought for the independence of this country against colonization. And the role that he played during the wars of resistance in defeating the English during some of the battles that were fought here in KwaZulu-Natal. And he's actually one of the great military strategists and thinkers that we had as the country. Even though the West will not recognize that, but we as black South Africans, we feel that as well as the entire nation, that King Shaka Zulu, we had actually to honor him by naming this platform against him, because, let me stand in, because of the role that he has actually played in the nation building of South Africa, making that South Africa is free, with the result that no, let's name this platform after him.
Or may I start by observing and respecting all protocols, around this house. His Majesty and the rest of the royal family are deeply honored by this honor extended by the community of the South African Navy to the royal family. Indeed, the name King Shaka signifies unity, and it symbolizes a lot more that we need as a nation. The work of the Navy, day and night, protecting and defending our shores in the times that we live in, could never really be overemphasized its importance. Not all African countries have got the privilege to have the Navy. It is one luxury that is a necessity to have as a nation. So His Majesty is very humbled that in the new government of South Africa, we continue to see the recognition of all the South African kingdoms that are also part of this country, South Africa. So we are very, very pleased. And what is even pleasing more is to see the way the South African Navy, when they go to look for their members and recruit, we know that we've seen them going to the rural of our communities, from KwaZulu-Natal to all the rural of South Africa. And the jobs that also goes with this kind of mission, this kind of naming, the pride that goes with it will take this country far. Because as a country, we are in the middle of an identity crisis. We need some inspiration and we need to collaborate. So the South African Navy has proven that they have the vision. And I would like to emphasize that beyond just emphasizing the action of His Majesty, I really think that we all need as South Africans to start putting and giving any kind of support that will allow this great giant of the Navy to be able to succeed. As the Vice Admiral has emphasized, that they cannot go anywhere without financial resources. You need financial resources to defend the seas, you need financial resources to regulate the seas and make sure that all the criminality is eliminated. And we need more power and we need more and more jobs, and everybody also will benefit and grow the country. So yes, as a royal family, we are very pleased and we are looking forward to more initiatives such as these, even from other sectors in car manufacturing. We'd like to see a King Shaka model in the electricity cars that are coming up. So to see the Navy taking this initiative, we could never say it more. We are out of words. We are truly thankful and grateful. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just in the interest of time, we will circulate the speech addressed by the Chief of the Navy to the members of the media. We still have other events which will still be with us, where you can have access to still be able to talk to us. So now, as we're about to close, we're going to have a symbolic gesture of the signing of the delivery certificate as a symbol that the SNA is receiving, the vessel today. So there will be a number of certificates that the panel will be signing, and as a sign of the symbolic gesture of receiving the check. We can just commence with that. You are more than welcome to take some pictures, because this is what symbolizes the delivery or the receiving ceremony, as we put it in our program. And I must indicate to the panels, you'll be signing more or less 5 times. So 5 times, so that each party will have the same originally signed certificate. So we can just commence just to be doing that. The certificates could be handed out. Thank you.
Sorry guys, can you...
It's a lot of signing. Yes, for this one. I sign on top. Yeah, I sign on top. Oh, thank you.
that is the last one. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. You know, you remind me, when we speak about I'm glad to be with you. We used to say in the MCC,
now that's it. Okay. Second last case now, and thank you very much. Thank you. It felt like a wedding ceremony. People signing seat certificates. Now that we're done with the part, we will afford Ms. Monty an opportunity to hand over back to Chief of the South African Navy.
Mind Adalens, thank you.
And my apologies to be more for you.
My brothers. Okay, can go in.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing that we do, we're just going to allow the panel to stay right there for at least a moment as the last thing, so that we
Can we go?
This is yours.